Madeleine Albright holds the historic title of being the first woman to ever serve in the United States government as Secretary of State. She also has a long and distinguished career in Washington, so who better to join me in a discussion about women and leadership? I'm Kelsey Hubbard, and here with me is former Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright.
Madam Secretary, thank you for joining me.
Great to be with you, Kelsey. Thank you.
So when you look back on your childhood, your early development, were there many female role models that you looked to, that you tried to emulate?
There really were not. You know, everybody talks about Eleanor Roosevelt, but I grew up in Europe, and when I came to the U.S. in 1948, she was this great figure, but I didn't know her, and so there really were not. And so I had a lot of male mentors and role models.
And was there an idea that you had at an early age about the woman you wanted to become, and was there a point in your life where you thought, I've achieved that, I've become the woman I want to be?
Well, it never occurred to me that I could be Secretary of State. It's not that I lacked ambition, it's just that I'd never seen a Secretary of State in a skirt. But I did want to be involved in foreign policy, and I think, did not fully find my voice until I was Ambassador of the United Nations and then Secretary of State, and actually since then. I think people said initially that a woman could not be Secretary of State primarily because dealing with kind of patriarchal systems or some of the Middle Eastern countries, but I actually didn't have any problems because I did arrive in a large plane that said United States of America. They also knew that I had to be the one to talk to them, and that if they wanted to have a conversation with the U.S., they had to begin with me.
Are you encouraged or discouraged about the current state of women leaders around the world?
Well, I would like to see more. I think that there are countries that have women presidents or heads of government, and I think that it has helped those countries in many different ways. I don't want to see mediocre women. I want to see women that really represent us well and who are smart and have a good background in whatever issue they're working on. And then I would hope that there would be a support system among women, because it's not easy, especially if you don't have all the jobs. And so I think if there's a certain amount of cooperation. And when I was at the UN, I got together the women permanent representatives. The stunning part, Kelsey, was at that stage there were 183 countries in the UN, and there were only 7 of us that were women permanent representatives. So we created a very powerful group. We called it the G7. And we did cooperate, and I had agreed that we all agreed that we would take each other's telephone calls before anybody else's. And so I think developing support groups is also important, not only just as friends, but in these high-level positions also.
And just in closing, is there anything you'd like to add in terms of young girls listening who might one day look up to being in a position of power? Anything that we should be doing to promote women's issues in this country, and what you'd like to see on that front?
Well, I want to see women that have a sense about who they are, that we respect each other's choices. I think that's one of the issues. I think women are very critical of each other. I think we need to be helpful to each other, and to try not to have a queen bee complex, but to really help younger women along. And one of the things that I am most proud of is when some young woman comes up to me and says, you are a role model for me. And that, you were asking what made me feel good about what I'd accomplished. That is about as good as anything that happens, because it does mean that I've accomplished something.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks, Kelsey.
I've been speaking with Madeleine Albright, former Secretary of State. I'm Kelsey Hubbard for the Wall Street Journal Digital Network.